Dear listeners, good morning and welcome to Comme d'Archi, the podcast that opens the doors to the fascinating world of architecture. For newcomers, let me introduce myself. I'm the spokesperson of Anne-Charlotte Despons, PhD in History of Architecture, published author, head of a communication and development agency based in Paris, France, dedicated to architecture. Let's meet every week to discuss culture and architecture with specialists and learn how to look at projects through a context and diversity lens. Thank you for being with me today, and now it's time for talent.
Bienvenue dans Comme d'Archi.
Dear listeners, delighted to meet you again today on the theme of the beautiful Ciguë Agency's Material Library. From the materials to the Ciguë Library, there is a whole story told by Alphonse Sarthout, one of the founders and director of the agency. For Comme d'Archi and Anne-Charlotte Despons, for Ciguë and Alphonse Sarthout, this is Esther. Let me tell you a story now. About Ciguë's Material Library. From our very first projects, we've been in the workshop hands-on with materials we found in the streets, gathering scraps and recycled bits left over from manufacturing. Cutting pieces of wood in response to proportion and texture, mindful of the contrast between newly cut parts and those worn by time. Discovering relationships between gesture, instantaneity, and timelessness. Observing the slow degradation of a material by the elements. The work is fed by your travels, chance discoveries, visits, and encounters. The first material we handled, which we hadn't specified nor produced, was a length of wood from the Hainaut quarries in Belgium. Referred to as a mortier, it's the equivalent of a cutting board for big stones. The wood itself speaks about the cut, the laborious gesture endlessly repeated. The texture of the board is worn down by the steel blade, soaked by water and stone dust, then dried to a breaking point, discarded. It's the story of the entire site in a single piece of wood, a sample of history. The board evoked an unrealized landscape, a model for a fictional urban master plan, a potential cladding for furniture, a wall covering. Although finally it was never really used as such. It was too powerful, too evocative to be reduced to a facade element, too specific to become a decorative object. As a totem, it became a kind of icon of the whole project, perhaps unconsciously. It spoke to us about the evocative force of a material, its capacity to transmit emotion while simultaneously speaking of a place, of a moment in time, and of a knowledge. This encounter motivated us to look further and explore all the sites of extraction like the quarry, always searching for the original source beyond the glossy catalogs of finished products, packaged, plasticized, cleaned, deodorized, stabilized, denaturalized. Rather than order samples from catalogs, we just buy raw material at 1-to-1 scale, then we start using it, testing it, transforming it in our workshop. We mix, assemble, combine to make new pieces. The material becomes a prototype, a sample of architecture. This manipulation of material is our daily ritual, our fuel to generate new possibilities. We live in close contact with it. We have it in front of us, close at hand at all times. It is a living organism that grows with us a little more each week. It overflows, it piles up, it invades the tables above, below, in the drawers, under the screen, behind the doors, in the corridors. We try to reduce, organize, dematerialize, tidy up, and purge, but the material always returns and grows, tirelessly. We started producing our own materials to challenge our habits and try slowing the wasteful depletion of primary resources in our own way and on a scale we can manage. The first attempt was using our own paper waste to make furniture paste. Our research lasted several months with countless tests and failures until we arrived at the formula and the technique for production of a series of modular paper cubes. Then we continued to refine, to test other application, to imagine another machine, an endless process in perpetual motion. Scaling up, we started looking for ways to make an entire building absorb its own waste, to create loops, and to explore the notion of an architecture which can grow from its own byproduct. We tested absorption potential by mixing crushed mineral waste with plaster as a binder to replace cement. This type of plaster consumes 10 times less energy to produce than cement. It can be made locally and it's naturally recyclable. The project was supported by the municipality of Paris and awarded by the Pavillon de l'Arsenal as part of the programme Fair 2019. Ultimately, our deepest beliefs and desires evolve from our material library. The Materiothèque encapsulates our moments of wonder, our experiments, mistakes, and triumphs, and gives evidence of our journey. It is not a museum, but rather a living chaos, a bank of open-hearted shelves from which everyone draw their daily dose of truth to give consistency and meaning to the projects that emerge from our workshop. Well, we hope that you enjoyed this beautiful material. Take care of yourself and let us meet next week for our English rendezvous.
Thank you for listening. Don't forget to tune in to our previous content on Instagram at Comme d'Archi Podcast. If you like it, make sure to promote the podcast by giving it 5 stars on Apple Podcast and adding a comment, or on any of your favorite podcast platforms. And don't forget to subscribe and listen to all of our episodes for free. See you soon, and until then, take care of yourself.